So, hello, we are here with Miss Monica Gandy, correct?
Correct.
And we are talking about the Dear Mama Project, and she has a story to tell. So, on that note, I'm just going to ask her a few questions and let her roll with it. So, Monica, how old were you when you had your firstborn?
I was 15, on my way to 16.
All right, and that's pretty young in regards to having children. So, how did your family handle it, and how was your support system looking like?
My family didn't find out that I was pregnant until I was 6 months pregnant. And how they found out, school, I could no longer take Jim because by that time my baby was moving inside of me, and so I couldn't take Jim anymore. And they threatened to call my house and tell my parents, so I had to tell. It was a firestorm. It caused battles between both sides of my family. Some were for me, some were against me, but everybody had decided that I should not keep the child.
Okay, and for the record, like, what year was this?
I got pregnant in May of 1987. I'm sorry, I got pregnant in May of 1988 and I had him November of 88. And no, that's not 9 months. He was born 2 months premature.
Okay, all right. So, tell me a little bit more about some of the things that you went through in regards to having your baby.
I had him premature, so he was born 2 pounds, 13 ounces. I was a kid, I'd never heard the word premature. He was in the hospital for almost 2.5 months. I had to go to the hospital every single day to see him. And while that was going on at the hospital, I was at war with my mother and father at home because I'm 15 and I had a baby, and I had a secret baby that nobody knew about for 6 months. So you can imagine it was really rough. Not to mention my mom was a registered nurse. So of course everybody felt like, well, why didn't you know she was pregnant? So it was just a lot going on there.
Okay, so were you ashamed of the situation?
I was terrified because I had went past the time frame to abort the child. So now, what do I do? And I didn't know how to tell anything. I didn't have time to be ashamed because I was too afraid. I didn't know what the plan was. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was only a sophomore in high school. I had no clue what I was going to do. But I knew that I didn't want to give my baby away.
And where was the child's father around this time?
He was in California. He had moved from Chicago to California. Now, before he left to go to California, he did know that I was pregnant, but I told him, oh, don't worry about it. I'm not going to have a baby. That never happened. I kept the baby. So when he moved back, it was probably late October, right after I told my parents, and that's when he found out. So he never told his parents. He was 3 years older than me, so he was 18 at the time. And it was just kind of our secret.
Okay, so when he did find out, and everybody found out, and everybody was pretty much on the same page, was he involved or?
He was. He decided to go to the service, which to me was running. But in his mind, he wasn't working at the time. So he just graduated high school. So he thought that, okay, I'll go to the service and then that will be able to provide some type of financial support for the baby back here. So that's what he did, which I was very grateful because I was in high school. I didn't have to find daycare, and that allotment money paid for my daycare every month and Pampers and a couple of other things. Things back then was extremely cheaper than it is now.
Okay, so when your baby was born, and you mentioned you were still in school and everything like that, who helped raise your son? Yeah.
Okay, so he was in the hospital for 2.5 months. I was still out of school then. I went back to school in January. He came home from the hospital in January. My paternal grandparents, because my mother wouldn't allow for him to come to our home. So my paternal grandparents, when my son was released from the hospital, went and lived at my grandparents' house because my grandmother was home during the day, and he was born with a heart defect at the time, so he had to have a heart monitor. So my grandparents took care of him Monday through Friday. When I got out of school on Friday, I had to go to my grandparents' house to keep my baby on the weekends.
Okay. So your mom was pretty much not involved in.
No,
Okay.
not at all, and wanted nothing to do with my son coming to our home.
Fast forward a little bit before I go back. Did that change anytime over the years?
It did. So from January until I got out of school in May, I packed all my things up because summer break was coming, and I was gonna go live at my grandparents' home so that I could be with my son. And my dad called my mom at work and told her, when you get off today, you go and pick Monica and the baby up. And it's not that my mother was being told what to do, but basically a decision for my dad had been made that his grandson wasn't going to live at his parents' house anymore. And he forced my mother to come get us because he knew that she was the one who had the biggest issue with it. So we did come home.
And eventually, did the relationship get better between you all?
Not between me and my mom, but my mom and my oldest son are like peanut butter and jelly.
Okay. And so, how many kids do you have?
4 total.
Okay, 4 total. So, when the next one, how old were you when the next baby came
When
around?
I had my daughter, I was 19.
Okay.
But I was married.
Okay, let's talk about that. So you were married and everything. So the support system was supposed to be in place by then, right? Being married, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Once I graduated high school, because when it was just Tim and I had to go to school. So that was a stipulation for my parents. They were trying to make it as uncomfortable as possible so that I would just give up and say, okay, I'm going to give him up for adoption. So I did some of everything, but I couldn't drop out of school or else they were going to put me out. So, it was 88, 89, and so I started dealing with guys who were drug dealers because I needed money. There was no support system for me. My parents were upper middle class. There was no such thing as food stamps and WIC and all of those things then for me. So, and I didn't have time to work a full-time job because I have a baby and I had to go to school. So I used what I thought would get me the most return. And unfortunately, it was my body because I had one. And that's what I did.
Okay. And of course, you phase out of that, of course.
Yes.
And how did you phase out of that lifestyle?
Because it was never anything that I wanted to do in the first place. It was by necessity. I have a need. I have a kid. He can't be hungry. Everybody was looking for me to fail. So I used what I had to get what I needed until I could do something different. So once I got out of high school, I was able to work. And so then I didn't need to do that anymore.
Okay. And as far as the work, well, let's go back to that. You worked it, and did you go to college straight?
No, I didn't go straight to college then. In fact, I didn't start going to school until I was in my 20s.
Okay.
So this was after I had 3 kids and had been married for a little while.
Okay.
So I went to hair school to learn how to do hair. I already knew how to do makeup, but I wanted a piece of paper that said I was certified to be able to do these things.
Okay. So pretty much you stayed on a grinding schedule.
All the time because I have a husband now. I have 3 kids. And from having my son at 15 and having so many tell me that I was going to fail, it changed my personality and it changed, I think, who I was. And it's not necessarily for the worse or for the better. It just changed how I viewed things. So I was determined that I couldn't fail at anything because this is what everybody's expecting for me to do.
Okay. So transitioning from your life and your experiences to that of those of this generation who pretty much have kids at an early age and may have some of the same situations going on, what kind of advice would you give to them in order to not make the same choices you made or find some sort of resources in their struggle?
I think, and this is such a crazy statement to make, things for young mothers today are so much better than they could have ever been when I was a young mom. There's so many avenues and resources that they have available, that they don't necessarily have to do the seedy things that I had to do, that I felt like I had to do in order to make ends meet for me and my child. I do think that if you have anyone that is positive and who's supporting you, and by supporting you, that does not mean that they agree with everything that you're doing, because that doesn't help. You need to have somebody in your life that can give you constructive criticism and let you know that, hey, this is not the right thing, but why don't you try this? But when you're young and you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling ashamed, you're feeling like you may have made a mistake, you get very defensive and you close your ears and you don't want to hear anything that anybody has to say, because in your mind you're grown. Well, I can tell you that you are not. Let your heart and your spirit person tell you, this person does have my best interest at heart. I may not want to hear it, but I need to at least take the time to listen.
Okay. Just a few more questions. In regards to, their choices in regards to going to school and having a baby and still maintaining, because a lot of times, young parents, they kind of get caught in the struggle of, I just got to take care of this baby, but I can't go to school, I can't go to work, or, I'm limited in my options. What is your response to that mentality?
The things that you have available for you now that allow for you to be able to go to school, be able to go to work, do all of those things, I didn't have. And if I could do it with nothing, it's about what's important to you. Yes, it is very important for you to take care of your child. But in order to take care of your child, you also have to take care of you. Because if you're not together, what can you do for your baby? And when you're not together, you start to make bad decisions and do things that you probably should not do. You can finish school. It may not be the way that you wanted it to be. It may not be at the school that you wanted it to be, but finish. Stay up at night. If you have to have a baby on your lap and you're reading whatever you need to read, it's possible. You just have to want to do it. You're not going to be in this situation forever. I thought that I was going to be 15 with a baby forever. I couldn't see where this was going to end. It does end. The best thing that I did, I started just writing things down daily that I needed to take care of for the next day. That helped, because your mind is all over the place. So my suggestion is get still, get a piece of paper, not your phone, not a tablet, and a pen, and write down what it is you need to do. Make your goal list realistic, even if it's just, what do I need to do tomorrow morning? Check that off, and then you make your another list and continue that way.
Okay, and the last question is pretty much, since you had to look outside of your immediate family for resources and support, what are some options that you would recommend others to follow in case they have the same situation, or they have a limited immediate family because of whatever factors going on, whether it's improper parenting or drugs or just the environment,
Don't rush into a decision. Rushing and not thinking will cause you to be in a more precarious position. I know that it seems like you need to make a decision right now. Just stop and think about what it is you need help with. Do you really need that help right now? If so, you have to start thinking about people that you may know or conversations that you have heard. You get a lot of information through conversation with people. Look some things up. Try not to involve too many people into your equation, because not everybody has your best interest at heart. So look into some things first. Now, unfortunately, there will be some emergency decisions that you have to make. You have to be okay with whatever that outcome. And I learned that very young. whatever decision I made, I stood by it, even if I'm not right. It's okay not to be right. Sometimes not being right helps you get to where you need to be right, if that makes any sense.
You gotta learn by making some mistakes
You have to
sometimes.
make some. You have to make some. Everything should not go smooth. And being denied and being told no sometimes is the best answer that you can get, because it will refocus your thinking and it'll set you in the direction that you need to be in.
Roger that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Gandy. That was very informative, and I appreciate your time. So
Thank you. I appreciate it.
wait to the camera for me, please. All right. Thank you.